Summer I Turned Pretty has become one of the most popular shows this year. I look at social media and suddenly I see theories about how the ending of season 3 will go. I admit, at first I didn't quite like the show. I started watching it a few years ago and when it first came out, and I didn't really like it much. I only watched 3 episodes and simply just decided it wasn't for me. I couldn't really tell you why, but I just don't think I could relate to it much, and I decided early on that I wasn't really a fan of Belly as like a protagonist, especially not one that I cared about. Then last August, I read all 3 books over the course of just 3 weeks. I devoured them immediately, hopping from one to the other because I just had to know how the saga was going to end. There's just something about her writing that just really captivated me and kept me turning the page. I remember laughing, crying, cringing plenty, but I finished the books and I gave the first book a 4-star and the last 2 books a 4.5. Given that I read the books and loved them, I decided to give the show a watch again and tell me why I liked it. I think knowing the full story made me see the show from a new set of eyes. And sure, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of every storyline, but I decided I can still bring my expertise and do a season-by-season recap and review, all in preparation for the big series finale, which is airing on September 17th. I, of course, like everyone else, really want to know if we're going to keep the original ending of the book, if you know what I mean. If you like this type of content, please give this a like and a follow so I can do more reviews like these in the future. Big disclaimer from here on out. Every single thing is a spoiler. We'll be discussing both the books and all of season 1 of The Summer I Turned Pretty. So if you haven't read or watched and you want to, please just come back to this video later because we're putting everything on the table today. So the first thing I want to address is I believe the reason I was hesitant to give this show a chance even after reading the books, and it's because the show is much different. Belly is still the main character. We follow her in the first book through and through, even having flashbacks to previous summers at Cousins Beach. We do not get anyone else's perspective in the first book, so we are uncovering the mystery of what's happening and what's going on alongside Belly. The show is unlike that. The writers have expanded each character, giving them storylines and complexities that Belly would have never picked up on, and even created characters to suit the storylines that they were creating. Let me start off with the things that have not changed. The book in season 1 followed the same premise. Belly, Isabella Belly Conklin, goes to Cousins Beach with her mother Laurel and brother Stephen every year to visit Susanna Fisher and her sons Conrad and Jeremiah. The 4 kids grew up together, but it's clear Belly has a major crush on Conrad that's lasted years. This year is different though. She has come to Cousins grown up, finally pretty, and the Fisher brothers do in fact notice. Belly picks up on a strange abnormality this year though. Conrad is suddenly moody and distant, which he hasn't been in years prior. He quit football, broke up with his girlfriend, and started smoking. Belly is concerned, obviously, and this stays a point of contention for the rest of the book, despite any inklings that maybe, just maybe, both Conrad and Belly like each other. And here is where things begin to change. First things first, the debutante ball only exists in the show. There are multiple characters that are created solely to support this debutante ball plot, and no, Nicole is not one of them. But here are my thoughts on that plot line and how it affects how we see the characters. For Belly, the ball was something new and exciting, a way to tap into her newfound confidence and make new friends, a way to leave the nest, aka her mom and Susanna, and start making her own decisions on Cousins now that she's older. For Conrad, the plot deepened his relationship with Nicole, which was really only surface level in the book and practically non-existent. It helped to establish that he is having issues that Belly doesn't pick up on, and add to the tension as Conrad seeing another girl directly makes Belly try to ignore her ever-growing feelings for him, but is unsuccessful. For Jeremiah, this plot gives him an in with Belly to confess his feelings and to take her to the ball, whereas in the book, his feelings get him nowhere, which I will address later on in the video. For Stephen, this plot gets him a girlfriend, Shayla. She doesn't exist in the book at all, and it really helps flesh his character out, giving him insecurities and conflict, which he doesn't really have in the book. And for Taylor, this plot causes strife between her and Belly, with her being jealous Belly has new friends and almost a whole new life, and it allows them to have a friendship breakup and subsequent makeup. For Laurel, this plot makes her realize Belly is growing up And she begins to struggle with this fact that continues into the later books. And for Susanna, this plot is heartbreaking, as Susanna shares and states that it would be her only chance to see Belly in a white dress, which is sadly true. The debutante ball seems like the perfect plot to show how our main character Belly is growing up, creating a new path for herself, but is still trapped by her adoration for Conrad. For a book that only has Belly's internal monologue and flashbacks, I think this was a great idea to allow the writers to deepen each character arc, give us storylines we can follow that aren't just about who Belly's going to end up with, and obviously helps lengthen how many episodes they can produce and how long they can drag the plot out. I will say this plotline opened the door to having more scenes of the teenagers underage drinking and getting drunk, which of course caused more drama. I understand that drinking like that isn't exactly unrealistic, but the book was great with all the lack of drinking, whereas the show used getting drunk and making dumb decisions as a way to progress the plot, and it kind of felt like overkill to me. Now that we covered the major plot of the show, let's move into how smaller things change for each character and what are storylines that the creators of the show established that are noticeably absent in the books. So let's start off with Belly, our main girl. Belly's personality is pretty much the same from book to show. The only difference being is that obviously we see a bit more of her insecurities in the book. She considers her younger self unattractive, wears clothing to hide her body. She has glasses and chubby cheeks, and she just didn't like it. Now that she has contact lenses, she feels prettier, but it's obvious she still has insecurities. There are many times in which she would compare what she was currently wearing to what the girls around her were. Like I said, just like in the show, Belly loves Conrad, has loved him since she was 10, never exactly tells Conrad, but it's obvious other characters like her brother and her mom Laurel are aware of her crush. The beginning episodes of the show mirror the book, with moments where Conrad and Belly have romantic tension, but something's clearly off about him this summer. In fact, the two get into arguments a lot, both in the show and in the book. We really start to see tension at the bonfire. The show has the bonfire being tense from beginning to end, with the Fisher boys refusing to let her come, then having another fight when a guy approaches her, then having another back and forth when the cops break up the bonfire beach party. The bonfire does appear in the books, but it is much less tense and actually reveals a lot. Belly is approached by the Fisher brothers' neighbor, who invites her and everyone else to the bonfire he's having. He asks Belly if she has a boyfriend, and she lies and says yes. Both Fisher brothers have a reaction to this. Jeremiah being more surprised, and Conrad looking at her in disbelief and maybe jealous. Belly's words, not mine. Belly is left alone as the boys all find other people to talk to at this party. Just like in the show, this is where Conrad meets Nicole. We see her for the first time, although he's not making out with her in the books as he was doing in the show. Belly instead stands alone, watching them simply talk when he approaches Cam, arguably the healthiest love interest Belly will have for the rest of the show. Cam is much the same in the show and in the book. Happy, easygoing, doesn't drink or smoke. In the book, though, he notices Conrad watching them, assuming he was maybe Belly's brother. Belly dismisses this, and he then offers to drive her home later on. This causes a fight, like the one in the show, with Conrad refusing to let her drive home with a stranger. The night does end calm, with Cam simply keeping her company until the Fisher boys want to leave. There's no dramatic cop involvement at all. I want to detour really quick to address Taylor. Taylor in the books only exists in flashbacks. She's not an active participant in the present day plot at all. In the show, however, she makes an appearance in multiple episodes. So the following that I'm going to list here is everything that happens in the book with Taylor. So Taylor is described as the girl who has always been pretty, dresses up, gets attention from the boys, while Belly is more of her sidekick. There seems to be some tension for the girls, as Belly wants to prove she's also becoming a pretty girl, but Taylor shoots it down. So Taylor exists primarily as a flashback to the summer when Belly was 14. She actually tells Belly when she arrives that she likes Conrad, and obviously Belly is completely jealous of that. The scene playing chicken in the pool does happen both in the book and the movie, but in the book, they go for a second round with Belly sitting on Conrad's shoulders, and she beats Taylor again at the game. Taylor then makes the decision that she wants to pursue Jeremiah instead. She, Belly, Jeremiah, and Stephen go to the boardwalk, but it's clear Taylor and Jeremiah are getting closer, causing Belly to feel kind of invisible. She doesn't like losing the attention of her friend, Jeremiah, but begrudgingly gives Taylor the permission to pursue him anyway. Later on that summer, during a game of Truth or Dare, Taylor dares Jeremiah to kiss someone in the room. He decides to kiss Belly, making it Belly's first kiss. A couple days after this, she sees Taylor kissing Stephen on the beach and says she's had a crush on Stephen for some time. Belly calls her slutty and they have an argument, as they do in the show, obviously under slightly different circumstances. They sort of make up by the end of that summer, but Taylor is clearly not as besties with Belly anymore, really. After that, their friendship isn't the same. So overall, what I noticed in the book is that it seems Belly sees Taylor as kind of a threat, seemingly feeling jealous over the notion that either Jeremiah or Conrad could be interested in Taylor than her. Their friendship seems full of pettiness and jealousy, which I am really thankful that is not a large factor in the show. In the show, Taylor seems primarily interested in Stephen, which, while it wasn't much of a big deal by the end of season 1, I have seen some things online to imply Stephen and Taylor might end up together by the end of the series, which I'd love to see play out, honestly. Belly initially assumes Taylor likes Jeremiah and doesn't even seem bothered by that like she appeared in the books. But Stephen is where she draws the line. Like in episode 3, the girls fight when it's revealed Stephen and Taylor made out, and it's especially rough in the show, as by this point, Taylor has a girl who's involved with, Shayla. They make up, and she comes back later for the volleyball tournament in episode 6, which again does not exist in the book. Overall, if you were to ask me which Taylor plotline I prefer, I go with the one in the show. This is because I think Belly needs a girl best friend to really be able to reflect on the craziness happening with the Fisher boys. Again, I'm more curious if they actually have Stephen and Taylor as an established couple later on, but for now, I'm just glad she's here. Okay, now back to Belly and her saga with Cam. Cam invites Belly to a party in the books, which is replaced by a party at Nicole's house in episode 3 in the show. Immediately, Conrad isn't thrilled, and both Fisher brothers decide to accompany them to the party instead of letting Cam and Belly go alone. There is a red flag in the books that I want to mention as someone who wasn't Team Conrad for a bit. This scene really bothered me in the book. So Belly is getting ready for the party, and she gets dressed up with makeup and perfume. And tell me why Conrad is mad about it. He chastises her for it, and she literally rubs the perfume off and takes some of her blush off as a result. I really hated that. I hate that he made a big deal over nothing and that she changed for him. That bothered me. I'm glad that we didn't really see that in the show at all. So later on, Cam asks her out again, this time to a drive-in theater, as we see in episode 2. In the show, this particular date gets ruined by the Fisher brothers and Stephen crashing it, but the only thing that ruins her date with Cam in the book is their lack of physical contact. They sit far away from each other, not holding hands, not speaking to each other. It's awkward, and they only share a small kiss after the date is done. Belly is distinctly let down by this lack of physical contact, but she doesn't really express that to Cam at all. So let's talk about the downfall of Cam and Belly. In the book, it's much more prolonged, so I'm gonna try to be rapid fire with this. So during an outing at the beach, she asks Cam to get a drink from the Fisher home, but he doesn't come back for like almost an hour. She finds him in the house instead, playing video games with the Fisher brothers. She's of course upset. I would be too if I was on a date and he ditched me to play video games without even having the decency to tell me. Later at the beach again, she tries to convince Cam to skinny dip with her, and while he at first agrees, he then changes his mind, which makes her mad again. She cannot understand the distance he has with her. Cam and Belly go on yet another date, this time to a mini golf place, and she is noticeably excited for it and seems to really enjoy her time there. But in her internal monologue at the end of the date, she reveals a major red flag. She's kissing Cam after the date and remarks how she wished Conrad saw them kissing to show him that she doesn't have a crush on Conrad anymore. I can't. That's awful. Awful. Fourth thing, and I think what broke the camel's back, is when Conrad invites Nicole over to the house, and Belly sees that as an opportunity to invite Cam along as well. Both couples sit down to watch a movie, but it's awkward. Conrad and Nicole leave, and Cam and Belly get into a brief argument over Nicole. When Conrad and Nicole return, and Conrad's about to kind of like drive her home and whatnot, Belly decides to move closer to Cam and snuggles up to him, which Cam correctly interprets as using his presence to make Conrad jealous, despite her saying otherwise. Listen, I think Cam clearly knew she had feelings for one of the brothers. I think he saw right through her, and he wasn't even wrong. I honestly feel bad for him. I think he was so much more perceptive and probably felt really used by Belly. In the show, the downfall was a little better in my opinion. With the debutante ball, the girls have to ask someone to be their date. He waits as patiently as he can, but it's clear to Cam that he knows she's not gonna ask him. She at least has the decency to break up with him without leading him on all summer, like in the book. She dumps him in episode 5 after a strained picnic date. She acknowledges that she's in love with Conrad and is able to say it out loud. And obviously Cam is upset. He ultimately accepts it and just wants her to be happy. Again, I'm sad for him, and she still kind of let him on in the show. I think she liked him, but definitely not enough to get rid of her feelings for Conrad. I'll miss him for sure, but before I get into how the ending of the book and season play out, I want to talk about the other characters, because there's a lot. Let's first start off with Conrad. Conrad is just as moody in the books as he is in the show, although we get way more insights into why he was like that. The biggest thing I'll note is that the Fisher boys are aware that their mother, Susanna, and their dad are getting a divorce in the book. In the show, it's clear that the two parents are separated, but maybe not divorced yet. The book makes this rift more pronounced. Conrad acts unfazed when relaying the news to Belly, which makes her assume that's why he was needy and probably has something to do with it. Why did I say needy? Moody, I meant moody. The creators of the show also seem to flip an important character element. In the show, I got the impression that Jeremiah was a daddy's boy and Conrad was a mommy's boy, but in the book, it actually kind of seems to be the opposite. Belly remarks in the book that Conrad joined football for his dad and actually enjoyed the sport, looked up to him, and even one year made a big deal of making a big Father's Day breakfast that his dad ultimately didn't show up for. It's clear he's struggling with the news of the divorce. In the show, though, Jeremiah is the one who wants dad's attention, seemingly craving it, but he can tell his dad prefers Conrad more. Conrad acts like he can't even look at his father in the show, visibly deflating when their dad surprises them by arriving in Cousins in episode 4 of the series. This probably is due to the fact that he most likely knows their dad cheated on their mom while she was in chemo, but I haven't seen the second season, so I can't tell you how that plays out yet. The other major difference with Conrad is his relationship with Nicole. The fact of the matter is, the relationship doesn't really exist in the book. They're witnessed by Belly at 2 different parties talking physically close to each other, but that's kind of all the inkling she gets. When she comes over to watch the movie with Cam, it's not clear if anything happened between Conrad and Nicole before he announces he's taking her home. I think to the author, Nicole just adds to the mystery surrounding Conrad. In the show, Nicole is a fully fleshed out character and has clear feelings for Conrad. She clearly likes him and expresses how distressing it is that Conrad seems to at one point like her, then brush her off completely. She can tell something is happening between Conrad and Belly, but a lack of physical evidence seems to be breaking her. In episode 6, this all comes to a head when Nicole and the other debutante girls convince Taylor and Belly to go skinny dipping. When Belly gets a text from Conrad that implies something is happening between them, she decides to steal Belly and Taylor's clothes and abandon them naked at the beach. This scene made me so mad. Like, you abandoned 2 16-year-olds naked in the water in the middle of the night, all to get back at a guy. Like, why punish Belly for Conrad's betrayal? Like, I know she probably assumed Belly was in on the lie, but still, I think it's horrible to abandon a kid like that. Anything could have happened to those girls. And then we get to the next episode and Belly is the one apologizing. Belly apologizing for Conrad and Nicole just sits there, notably not apologizing. That honestly bothered me so much, and I cannot believe that Belly forgave her for that and apologized when that was not her fault. And I personally would have never forgiven Nicole for that, honestly. Overall, to finish up Conrad's arc, while moody, he also seems cold in the book, and the fighting between Belly and him really made me feel for her, especially when those fights stemmed from being with Cam. He definitely has some feelings for her, but he's reacting in stress and anger that it makes those moments of romantic tension kind of meaningless, to me at least. I can't say I immediately hoped for her to end up with Jeremiah instead, but I was not on Team Conrad, that is for sure. I have lots and lots of thoughts about Jeremiah, but I quickly want to mention the other small arcs we witnessed before I go on a complete tangent about him. So let's start off with Stephen. Stephen is a kind of meh character in the book, typical annoying older brother, besties with Conrad and Jeremiah, but not exactly aware of any tension happening around him with the Fisher brothers and Belly. In the book, he actually leaves cousins early, going on a road trip with his dad to check out colleges. He decides to not come back to cousins, choosing to, quote, focus on studying for the SATs. Although Belly believes he actually wants to spend time with his new girlfriend back home. That's the extent of his involvement really in the book, minus his flashback with Taylor 2 years prior, but again, it's not in the present, so he just leaves. In the show, Stephen is insecure about how much money he has. He begins seeing a girl named Shayla, who was also a debutante with Belly in episode 3. She is fashionable, smart, and obviously rich with rich friends. The conflict begins when she shows him what suit to get to wear at the Deb ball. He tries to say it's fine, he'll get something like what she showed him, but clearly it bothers him. He works at a country club with Jeremiah, and while he makes good tips, he experiences microaggressions and feelings of inferiority, which do deeply affect him. He loses all of his tip money in episode 6 at a poker game with Shayla's friends trying to impress them. Of course, he also makes out with Taylor, which Shayla finds out about in episode 4, and he spends the rest of the season making it up to her. I think overall, whatever Stephen has with Shayla probably won't last. You shouldn't have that many ups and downs at the start of a relationship. I'm not rooting for them really. I'm also not rooting for him to end up with Taylor, but frankly that's because I haven't seen them together and I have no clue what a relationship between them would be like at all. I want to quickly talk about the moms. As we are from Belly's perspective, naturally the moms are an afterthought in the book. Belly is much more close to Susanna than her own mother. In fact, Susanna and Laurel get into arguments about her spending too much money on Belly. Susanna, though, wants to spoil her, and it's clear why. Just like in the show, Susanna's cancer is back. This time it seems treatment won't be able to help her. This fact is purposely left hidden from Belly, Stephen, and the Fisher brothers, although they already know this fact. Susanna in the books is already receiving treatments over the summer, which makes her sick, but in the show, she doesn't get any treatment, only getting convinced to seek treatment by Conrad and Jeremiah at the last episode. The main difference for the moms is the fact that Laurel hooks up with a new character named Cleveland, who's not in the books at all. At first, things are awkward between them. They're both authors, dealing with their own life changes, but she seems to be having a decent relationship with him. We don't see anything deep happening between them, just hookups. Her ex-husband might come back into the picture, though. He appears in episode 4 with a new girlfriend that he subsequently separates from while in Cousins. It's clear both in the books and in the show that Laurel was the one who initiated the divorce. Maybe they get back together later on, maybe they reconcile their differences, maybe she begins a full relationship with her new boo that we can see in season 2. I don't know. I haven't watched it yet, but I am curious how it all plays out. Okay, the moment everyone has waited for, Jeremiah. Jeremiah is so different from book to show. It's actually insane. So I'm gonna compare and contrast him for you. So Jeremiah in the show is bisexual. Makes it very clear in episode 1 when he points out everyone at the pool that he's hooked up with, and it includes basically every man and woman there. It's pretty clear his escapades were purely physical. It doesn't seem to be romantic in nature. In the books, his sexuality is never stated. In fact, I don't think any of his dating history is mentioned other than he was the one to steal Belly's first kiss during that Truth or Dare game 2 years prior. Jeremiah actually comes off sweet and considerate in the books. There's one moment I really wish got added, so here it goes. Stephen, Jeremiah, and Belly go to the mall for the movie theater when it's raining one day. It's the only theater, and there's only one movie playing, and happens to be a romantic comedy. Stephen leaves disgusted, but Jeremiah stays with her, buying her a soda with Twizzlers as straws, and offers to switch seats with her when a large man blocked Belly's views of the screen. Belly remarks she wonders if Jeremiah wanted to kiss her, but reminded herself that she has a crush on Conrad. This is obviously one of the first signs Jeremiah might have feelings for her, and I think foreshadows how Belly might end up having to choose which brother she wants to be with. Jeremiah in the books actually seems to have an inkling about what's wrong with Conrad, asking what the fight at the bonfire was about and telling her to be nicer to Conrad as he's having a hard time. He refuses to elaborate on this point. In the show, though, he does not have any clue what's up with Conrad, but also doesn't really seem to care overall about being in his own little world. Again, I mentioned earlier how he craves his dad attention and feels as though maybe their dad loves Conrad more. That is way more highlighted in the show. But he does still feel some daddy issues in the book. They're just less pronounced. He does know that Belly has a crush on Conrad, but has a thing with Cam. He makes fun of Cam both in the show and the book, but overall he comes across as warmer and less intense in the books. This especially comes across when he confesses his feelings for Belly. He confesses in the book when he and Belly are left alone to watch a movie in the living room together. He tells her he doesn't think Cam is right for her and admits that he has feelings for her. Belly turns him down, realizing in her internal monologue that she still has feelings for Conrad and he's the only boy for her. Jeremiah is obviously hurt by this, but cautions Belly that Conrad will only end up hurting her. In the show, it could not be any different. It's especially different because he kisses Belly and she kisses back. But this is after we see Jeremiah throw a firework at Conrad and Belly when they get close to kissing, and convincing Nicole to ask Conrad to a music festival just to get rid of him for a little bit and make his move on Belly. It comes across less sincere and more possessive. Overall, he acts like a mediator on several occasions, especially when Conrad picks a fight with an older guy at a party, all in the book. The show, though, made him much more possessive, selfish, carefree, but in a slightly bad way. I know this is all in preparation for the later seasons when he makes some not good choices, but gosh, I really did like him in the books and how he just accepted, or at least looked like he accepted, that Belly still loves Conrad. And I wish we saw this sweetness more instead of his abrasiveness that we see instead. The ending of season 1 and the book are similar, with the brothers ending up in a physical altercation and it being revealed to Belly what Susanna's condition is. This obviously puts a damper on all the will they, won't they vibes, but lets the readers know that the next book and next season will have a much different tone. Susanna is dying, the Fisher brothers can't handle it, and Belly realizes how she was so focused on Conrad and making him jealous that she couldn't see what was really happening. But both end on a similar note. Conrad and Belly share a kiss on the beach, holding hands with a grim reality facing them. Here are my final thoughts. Do I like season 1? Yes, shockingly enough. I cringed many a time, but you know, I'm glad I gave it another chance. Is the show better than the book? No. I do still like the book better. I can't say I really cared about some of the minor plot lines, and some point blank infuriated me, like I mentioned. I felt for Belly and really felt how realistic it was to be so hung up on one guy who was emotionally unavailable. I think we've all been there, and it sucks, and I think she did what she thought would give her the results she wanted. At the end of the day, she was 15, turning 16. I made terrible choices at that age. We all do. I don't agree with completely hating her as much of what happened, especially with the brothers fighting over her, was not what she asked for or wanted. It's obviously going to get messier, and I'm sure I'll hate her decision making later in the seasons, but for now, I am rooting for her. What did you all think of season 1? I would love to know what you all thought, and if you want to review and recap of season 2, make sure to like this video and give us a follow. I loved making this episode, and I'd love to know what you all think. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all in the next one. And cut!